Hey there, this is Sully from Valley Medical Services, and welcome to our channel. Today we're going to have roundtable number 2. In the office today, we've got myself and Joe Lipschitz. Joe's also another one of our instructors, as well as a member of our curriculum development committee. He's been active since the day we founded this organization and done a lot to help us out. And I figured he was a great person to have in since our announcement said that we were going to have myself and another veteran and dinosaur instructor holding a live discussion. Well, I figured Joe would help me cover the dinosaur part of it since he's been around doing this longer than I have. Welcome in, sir.
Good evening. It's been a long day. I don't know if it's day or night, but it's dark, so.
Well, yeah, we sort of have to apologize a little bit. I know we were supposed to do this around noon today. Unfortunately, Joe's been busy actually working and doing something productive. I've been sitting here in the office on my my fifth point of contact. But um,
Yeah, if I would have thought about it, I could have sent you pictures of the building. We had a training burn today, so we
oh,
did 5 rotations through the as interior attacks, and then we leveled the structure at the end.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, good to get hands-on training. Always good to get
Oh,
hands-on.
definitely. And we were very fortunate. We didn't have any injuries and no anything. I mean, it was a great learning experience today.
Oh, that's good. Did you get some new guys a chance to see their first fire?
Oh yeah, and some old guys to enjoy the fire.
Right.
And
So
we melted the snow off the roof, so it actually worked out pretty well.
right, because you're up north, you're in New Hampshire. I'm down here in South Carolina, so yeah, you get to melt some snow.
Oh
I
yeah,
always One of my favorite parts about doing it was always when we were doing our live burns and stuff for like regular structural burns, not in a burn building, but when we get some new guys in there and sit them and just say, okay, watch it build, learn the signs,
right.
learn the steps. You know, we tell you all this in school, but now we're going to show you why.
I
So
know.
that always made it kind of fun. But
Well, the building we burned today was donated to us.
okay,
So
that's always nice.
yeah, they want to put a new structure on the site, and they're like, "Hey, it costs us this much to tear a building down, haul away the debris. What do you guys think of having it donated as a training facility?" We're like, "Okie doke, free building, training. Yeah, this is going to be
Mhm.
fun."
Now, I know we used to do those periodically up in North Carolina. We don't get as many donated buildings, unfortunately, down here in South Carolina. But I know when I was up there, we got really lucky. The buildings were in the city, but it was a whole area of houses. It had at one point been like guest cottages at one of the
Yeah,
plants and one of the industrial facilities, and it had been shut down for years. And these buildings were already pretty much gutted halfway anyway.
yeah.
But the city got like 9 or 10 mill houses donated to us.
Oh, nice.
And the city said, well, city of Asheville couldn't handle all of them. They wanted a couple of them, but they let the volley companies from around the city who contracted with them go in and pick them out. And so for about 2 or 3 weekends in a row, there were multiple structures going.
Oh, that's always good.
Because we did one with a bunch of our mutual aid companies, and then the next day, one of our mutual aid companies did one with a bunch of us there.
Yeah, that's what we did today. Was we had a bunch of our mutual aid companies come in, and everybody got to play.
Cool. But yeah, I wanted to get this up because I figured, yeah, better late than never. I actually had some really interesting um, commentary and questions come across my desk in relation to today's little stream setup. So I wanted to, get you in here because I figured you'd have a lot to say about these things.
Oh,
Well,
you know
gee,
me. I've always got a lot to say about everything.
yeah, imagine that shit, right? But just from a standpoint of, you know, I know taught EMT, I've taught EMT. We've all worked with these brand new, parapups or whatever else.
Yeah,
And I kind of get to that moment of, you know, you've got a kid out there, let's say they're just, wrapping up their senior year in high school. They don't know what they want to do with their life. They've kind of got an interest in this, but they don't know. You know, if they come by your station by dumb luck because they see the truck out or they run into you at lunch somewhere, what advice do you have to these new kids who are interested in EMS or curious about it or want to know something? Or because I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there, they might, while they have an interest or they have a thought about it, they don't even know where to begin. They don't have a clue.
Right, because all they base all their knowledge on these days is what they see on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some good and there's some bad with TV. You
Right.
know, I mean, New Orleans EMS does a great job
Mm-hmm.
with their show.
Yeah,
And then
Night Watch, or was it Night Watch? Third one was Night Watch.
Night Watch, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, and that, in my opinion, was wonderful. I know, when I got into it, and probably to a point you saw it too. We got a lot of people coming in who had watched like way too much Rescue 911. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
that ain't it. That ain't
Very
it.
rarely do you get cookies delivered to the station.
You got to make sure they're not spiking something fun in there.
And
You
up
know,
here, we have to worry about edibles because the states that surround us all have legalized marijuana.
yeah,
So, it can really make a shift interesting if somebody drops off a bunch of pot brownies.
yeah.
You know?
But I mean, between that, but I mean, like I said, the kids who have watched it, and Rescue 911, to me, it was good to a point because it sort of got the word out there about what we were. But
Yeah.
on the other side of the coin, it's like, okay, we've got this Rescue 911 TV show. Okay, great, fantastic. And it's going to be 30 minutes or an hour, however long it was, I don't remember.
Yeah.
And they're going to have these selected incidents that are the 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100 had a great outcome. Everything was celebrated. Everything was reenacted. And if you had been on some real scenes, so then they walked over and they called 911. Yes,
Yeah.
I live at 123 Anywhere Street, and my husband's not. I promise you, the original call didn't sound like that at all.
Oh, I know. They've
And then,
got
they've
somebody
got
screaming
the
into the
picture in the
phone.
station of us walking briskly to the truck. No mention of having to run to the bathroom and like take a quick whiz. Yeah, it's so
Or
the
nobody
people
going,
see.
crap, I was just about to eat.
Yeah. Oh.
You
But
know?
again, nobody gets in the truck and looks at each other and says, "The hell road did they say? I don't know. I thought you heard."
I know.
We had a lot of. It was very scripted, smooth, and professional looking.
Yep.
And honestly, having worked in the business, having been on a truck a couple times in my life somewhere
Yeah.
for about 25 years, dude, it ain't like that.
No.
It ain't like that.
And how many times on TV have you seen people run for the truck? The only
Very,
way
very,
I'm
very
running for
rare.
the truck is if my partner forgot to put it in park and we're both on the outside of it. You know? And then
Pretty
depending
close.
on where it's going, I may not run.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
even more so than that, they have the video shot outside the station and all the alarm bells are going off. The doors going up, the lights are already on, the truck's already running.
Yeah.
I don't know what you saw, but it's like, okay, hit the door, someone crank up the truck.
Yeah.
Dude, start pulling out the map book. Where the hell are we going? How the hell should I know?
Yeah.
And of course, that when they're going, dispatch is giving them this great instruction because in the reenactment, that's the only call on the radio.
Right.
There's not 3 other trucks screaming for directions or getting lost or someone else.
Or getting updates. And it's like up here, caller A calls into 911, who turns around and forwards the call, or in theory, to the to the county 911 sir, the county dispatch center, who then dispatches the ambulance or police or whatever, depending on how they EMD the call.
Right.
So the whole state goes through basically two 911 dispatch centers that a state run. Then they break it down to the counties. We're down there. If in your county you dial 911, you're talking to the dispatcher in that county, who's
Right.
dispatching fire, police, whoever. Up here, you've got now it's funny, they'll do a pre-alert tone up here,
Right.
which is basically it's hitting the county, our fire dispatch, and while they're getting the information, there could be a 5-minute delay between both agencies talking to each other and them doing the EMD to decide, okay, Grandma Jones has gas, but it's an emergency because it's causing chest pain.
Right.
You know,
And I
and
mean, Grandma Jones is having nausea, epigastric pain, doesn't feel well.
yeah,
Maybe it's gas,
yeah,
It's either an acute myocardial infarction or an acute internal fart. We don't know.
right,
Yeah. But right there, as you start putting the 12 lead stickers on, all of a sudden you hear this loud thing. You realize it's not the air horn, and Grandma Jones goes, "I feel better."
yep,
And right about at that point, you realize it smells like something died in the back of your rig. But okay.
yeah, yep, and boy, that happens more often than not.
But it's not, again, if you've watched Rescue 911, folks, I'll tell you, it ain't that pretty and it ain't that polished.
Oh, I know.
Especially not everyone showing up with all their pockets and patches and collar brass and everything else. I have responded off duty or back up to calls in t-shirts. The gentleman in front of you is wearing a t-shirt. I
Yep,
promise you, especially No Dark 100, that may be what shows up.
I
It's
know.
not pretty, it's not scripted. Now
And
on
in
the
the
other,
middle of the night, if I get toned out for a call, I have to remember to have pants on.
that's
You
always a good thing. It's
Yeah,
always a
because
good thing.
I mean, in the middle of the night, the tones go off, and the first thing you're thinking is, okay, where am I going? And what they just say? And then you're going, okay, they just said that. Now, where was I going again? Oh, crap, I got to put on pants.
Yeah.
You know?
And again, whether, responding volunteer from the house or even at the station, I mean,
Yeah,
when we were on duty, the tones are going off. If you're asleep, especially if you're about that 2 hour mark, you're rolling out of bed, mental fog. Okay. Sometimes I'd sleep with pants, sometimes not, but it's like grab my pants,
yeah,
zip up my boots, make sure the right foot's in the right boot, left foot's in the left boot.
I know.
Okay. Grab my cell phone, my little, Tommy trauma pouch. And it's like you're wandering out, and it's like, okay, eyes open. Come on, eyes open. Functional human,
Yeah,
functional human. But, again, like I said, Rescue 911, but also the calls.
yeah,
Rescue 911, they got all the big high priority Delta rescue,
yeah,
real EMS was not that.
yeah,
I think that the thing at one point that 99% survival rate on the TV show on cardiac
yeah,
arrests. And hey, that can happen, but that's
yeah.
the pretty much the exception, not the rule. Saves are great. I'd love to see more saves.
Oh, yeah.
EMS is getting better and better. But I don't remember ever seeing Rescue 911 got to go sit with a decomposing body waiting on the corner.
Right.
The real job was not that.
Yeah.
Rescue 911 meets some crazy woman in the yard screaming that she's got a cough for a week and doesn't want to call her doctor.
Right.
Okay, let's go to the hospital.
And when was the last time we had one not long ago where police were chasing a naked psychotic man down the street and they wanted us to stand by for the police? Well, a naked man ran by and it's like, okay, well, he was kind of waving at us in a certain way and the police were chasing him and we just sat there and watched, you know?
Central Medic 1, could you advise description on the naked man? I believe we may have just seen him.
Yep. And seen more.
Because there could be more than one.
Yeah. Well, where I work, there very well could be.
Yeah, and so I know.
Major metropolitan area
Well, Joey.
for New Hampshire.
Now, okay. even though where you're at is Metro for New Hampshire, you work down here long enough, you can never
I
rule
know.
out crazy redneck games.
Oh, no
I
kidding.
mean, again, come down here, it's like what is going on. Central be advised, subjects standing out in the middle of the street, he's butt naked with a sword smearing poop on himself. I mean,
Right.
those Rescue 911 was, again, a great little PR film, a little snippet of EMS
Yeah.
life, but it wasn't the life that we've lived.
No.
Now, I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not bitching. I'm really not.
No.
But again, these new people, it's like, if they've got an interest, whether it be into going into EMS or public safety or anywhere, I think that my best advice and biggest advice I've told people over the years is, if you're interested, I know when I was up in North Carolina, I'd always tell people, go get involved with whatever your local community volunteer agency is. If you've got a local volunteer fire department or local volunteer ambulance squad or whatever, go get in with them.
Yeah.
Go talk to them, get involved with them, find out, do they do medical stuff? Do they offer training? Do they offer, because again, someone can go from out of high school to the local tech school, community college, or like down here we have the councils.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's wonderful. They can get all the credentials in the world. And how many times have you and I seen people spend 2.5 years of their life, run through all their student loan stuff and Pell Grants and everything else, and have this great, associate degree or paramedic card and all this stuff, and they don't have a damn clue what they signed up for because they
Right.
saw the Rescue 911.
Yeah. I had a
um,
student, I had a paramedic student that was riding with me years ago, and it was her first ride along, and we had a bad call.
mhm.
And it was a pickup truck with 6 people in it, 2 in the cab, 4 riding in the bed, and these gentlemen were partaking in some cold beverages on their way home from work. Well, they
Of
dropped
course.
2. Yeah, they dropped 2. I mean, it was a hot summer day, and they were landscaping type individuals who worked outside all day.
So they're probably borderline dehydrated. The booze was cold and hit them really hard.
And really good, because a cold beer in the summer isn't a bad thing if you're
No,
staying home and in a safe environment.
yeah.
That was the
Or you know what?
discussion.
Five of them, can go big or go home. The other one needs to focus on go home.
Right. Well, they dropped 2 wheels off and they chucked everybody out of the pickup truck.
Yeah,
So we had, I think 1 or 2 dead on scene, and I had a guy who was pretty foobarred, and I had the student with me, and we threw another one in the back who was kind of borderline whether they were going to die or not. And me and another medic are in the back. We're working with them. We've got this student, and we do all kinds of fancy medic shit and get to the ER and go back out to the truck, and the student's gone. And I'm like, this is bizarre. I mean, we did take a while turning over the patients in the ER, and because we just dumped a train wreck on them.
right.
So we did help a little bit in the ER. We didn't just shove the stretcher through the back door and say, "Here you go,
Good luck.
delivery."
Yeah,
And come to find out, one of my friends was her primary instructor. He called me and said, "What the hell did you do to this kid?"
yeah.
And I'm like, "She just walked out. I don't know." He said she quit today. She realized that this job was not for her.
And I have all the respect for her in the world
Oh,
for it.
so do I.
That's where I worry a lot
But
because
she was
again,
18 years old, just out of high school, and thought that it was going to be like TV.
yeah. And see, I worry about the people who they go through the schooling, and if this call, it happened early to her, but if it had happened in her capstone in her final year, and she's put 2.5 years of her life into something that's not
Yep.
going to pan out.
Oh, I
I
know.
don't so much worry about, oh, well, she didn't finish.
Right.
You know what? If this ain't where you want to be, figure it out early. And that's why I tell
Yeah.
people, go volunteer.
Yep.
I started running volley, and the thing was, I got hands-on experience of how a real scene works and runs.
Oh yeah.
B, they helped out a bunch with training, which definitely, save
Yep.
a few bucks there. C, you get the people who are like, okay, how many times do you see people come in and they last about 6 months from a volley agency and they just sort of, you know, the
Yeah.
ones who are really passionate about it, they're the ones who go to all the schools, go to all this, put in all the time.
Yep.
But I knew what I was getting myself into.
Right.
When I went from volunteer to paid, it was like, okay, A, I've proven myself to the agency. B, I've got the schooling that they help pay for. And C, I knew what I was going to be doing.
Right.
Yeah. I think when you get into a situation, it's, some of the stuff, it's like this, the 90-day fiance thing.
Yeah.
Would you marry someone you've only known for 90 days? What, are you kidding me? I'm not saying it
Oh
couldn't
no.
work, but
Yeah.
think about this.
Well, I don't know if
These
the
people,
TV show's giving me several $1,000,000 to marry them. I might consider it because then even if they get half, I'd still come out ahead.
right?
I
But
mean, they
yeah,
very well could be getting a green card out of the deal too. Who knows?
there you go. But you look at some of the people who it's like they go through and they're trying to, build, a career. They don't know what they want to do. And if this isn't going to be for them, hey, fine, more power, go find what is for you.
Yep.
Maybe you want to go to nursing or respiratory instead.
Yeah.
If, I worry about the ones who spend so much time and then it's like, okay, well, I did all that. Now I'm here and I really don't want to be here.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe,
We've seen those.
yeah. I mean, you and I both, we've been here for a while.
A
We
day
made
or
a
two.
conscious decision to stay here a while.
Yeah.
You know, how many times do you see the people who last a year and it's just not what they want to do? They go back to building pool decks, they go back to
Yeah.
roofing, they go back to selling insurance, they go back to, you know, running a dive shop, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, look, this just not, I'm not happy.
I
You get
know.
the people who are happy and it's a great fit for them. And personally, I've got
Yep.
no regrets.
Oh,
No
I know.
regrets. But
And then
but
there's people who get into it and think, "Oh, well, I can do this and make a lot of money and enjoy myself." And that's nobody gets to be a millionaire as an EMT or paramedic.
right,
They think that we make the same money as nurses and only work 8 or 10 days a month.
right.
Well, that's not the way it works. How many people in emergency services do you know that have landscaping jobs on the side or work for multiple agencies? Or, a lot of people don't have one job,
Or
you
even
know?
if they only had that one job, then they teach on the side like us or
Yeah.
other things or
Or they work 3,000 hours a week, at their primary job. And
what, 48 on 24 off isn't natural?
nah, nope.
But then again, I will say that's I'm not bitching about it. It's the sacrifice we made to stay where we
Right.
love to be.
Right.
I mean, I love what we did. Now I'm not active on a truck right now, but when I was, I enjoyed what I was doing. It was interesting. It was intriguing. I won't say it necessarily was fun, but it was not routine or monotonous. Even if you got the same address and the same patient once in a while, there'd always be something a little different. You get different patients, different scenes, different wrecks, different
Yep.
situations, different presentations. You're always learning something,
Yep.
and if you go in that, yeah, I got the card and I know everything. No, I've got news for you. That's the learner's permit.
I
But
know.
you then start learning and start doing, and you look, you know,
And you look to the people who have been here for a while for advice.
yeah,
You can't go in just getting your ticket, whether it's an EMT or a paramedic, on day 2 because you just finished school thinking you know more than the people who have been around for 25 or 30 years or even 5 years.
yeah,
Because in 5 years, these people have seen some stuff and
yeah.
have done some things. and they
Right.
have learned a few things.
Right. And the thing is, while I know that people coming fresh out of school may have more of the technical and book stuff, and it's probably a lot fresher in their mind than it is in mine.
Oh, I know that feeling. That's why I
But,
like having students.
right. And that's one reason why I've always enjoyed teaching, because that gets me back in the book.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, nothing like preparing a lecture or preparing something is going to get you back in the book as much as, getting a lecture ready. But
Yeah,
the other thing is, there's a lot of our patients out here who didn't read the book.
right.
You know, even in the latest copy of the paramedic books, which I've got a bunch behind me over here, there's not complex medical train wreck. It's not in there. I've Googled it.
Right.
But human beings can have three things going on at once, and then add the fact it's 44 degrees outside and there's an environmental component.
Yeah,
And so because it's so cold, they're, having to burn more energy to stay warm. And so that's dragging their sugar down, causing, yeah.
exactly.
The chapter on diabetes, I don't think, and the last time I looked through a chapter on diabetes, they mentioned how stress can cause, sugar to drop.
Right.
I've seen repeatedly thermal stress.
Yeah.
It's cold at night in an old mill house in,
Yep.
the downtown city area where, I mean, you could see your breath in this woman's kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the third time we were there that week.
Right.
Why? In the middle of the night, trying to keep her homeostasis up, it pulled her down.
Yep.
So, again, and here's the other thing I will say this: new people, their first few years, can pretty much learn something from every single person they work with. And when I say
Yeah.
every single, the paramedics can learn something from the EMTs who have been around the block. The
Yeah.
EMTs who are brand new can learn something from the EMTs who have been around the block,
Yeah.
because they've all had to face different situations and learn coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
But, the ones coming in, that's great that, they went through all this schooling and education, but that's the learner's permit. You'll learn a lot when you get on the road.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the volunteer time, the getting on the road, even when you're working, if you can manage to work like an EMT job doing in a facility or non-emergent while you're going to school, or work part-time or weekends while you're going to paramedic school, it's great that you learn all these skills. Have you applied them? Have you actually used
Right.
them? And, in third ride time, some agencies are great. Some preceptors are great about getting you involved.
Right.
In some, you're literally a living, breathing skills machine.
Yeah.
Okay, you're here to start IVs. You need to learn to start IVs. So today you're going to start IVs, but you
Yeah.
haven't assessed the patient all day.
Yeah.
You haven't done a head to toe.
Yep.
Now, again, I know you precept. When I precept, my people especially toward the end of the program, I tell them, I'm just here to keep you from killing something. You go
Yep.
do something. Run
I
it.
tell them that
Ask
all
your
the time.
questions. You think about it. Okay, if you're learning to fly a plane, if you sit there in the, co-pilot seat, and I do all the flying all the time, as I say, you see what I'm doing? Okay, and then I cut you loose to go do it. You haven't done it. You haven't done the feel of it.
Right.
No, the way the flight instructors do it, I want you to land this thing. I'm sitting over here as your safety valve just in case.
Yeah. I'm not going to let you put us both into the ground. I'm not going to let you kill
Hopefully.
somebody. Well,
Hopefully.
yeah. And it's like I had a medic who was basically doing his last day of ride time. And he worked for the service. And we get called out to a bar, and this guy was unresponsive. Okay. Well, he's in a bar. Why do you think he's unresponsive? Possibly inebriated. I mean, he did smell like alcohol. And so we
But
get him in the
now,
bus and
okay,
get him out
he
of the
smelled
bar.
he smelled like alcohol.
Right.
But if he fell on the floor, he fell in somebody else's spilled drink.
Right.
He could have been
Well,
sober as a judge. We don't know.
we put him on the monitor, and the guy says, "Oh crap, he's in VTAC." And I look at the monitor, and he's getting ready to push, because back then we used lidocaine
I
as a
remember
first
those
line.
days.
Yeah. And he says, "Oh, we got to give him 100 of lidocaine quick." And I look, and I said, "I don't think you'd want to do that." And he's like, but look, it's VTAC. Well, just then his wife walks up, little older lady, because at my age, 60s isn't old.
Right.
And I said, "Ma'am, does he have a pacemaker by any chance?" And she says, "Oh yeah." She said, "It runs all the time." And I'm like, "Huh, how interesting is that?" And she said, "Last time he was at the bar, his sugar dropped and he passed out." I was like, "Huh,
Mm-hmm.
not a cardiac event." And he says, "Oh, I'm going to check his sugar." And it was like 24.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was it VTAC, or was it his sugar? It was his.
Well,
And when I looked at it, it looked like a rate of 80, because back then we had that 3-second look. You look up for 3 seconds, look at the patient, look up for 3 seconds, look at the patient. And it wasn't, it was strictly paced.
right.
His pacemaker was set at 80. We gave him an amp D50 back then. And he woke up and
Mm-hmm.
did a frosty, said, "Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday." And
Yeah.
signed a refusal and went back into the bar and had a burger and a beer and was back about his business.
Yeah. And again, for all we know, he may have walked into that bar, restaurant, establishment, whatever,
Yeah.
and he may have realized, I need to eat. He
Yep.
staggers up to the bar, knocks someone's drink over on him. We
Yeah.
get there, if we assume just drunk, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, that is one thing I have to say, and I don't know if it'll ever happen, but the same way we have glucometers in the field,
Yeah.
you know, in the perfect world, I'm waiting for the day that we can get like finger stick booze testing in the field.
Oh God, I
Because
hope they don't use that at work.
true. But that being said, I can't tell whether someone has just taken one shot of vodka, a half shot of vodka, or they've been drinking all night. You know,
Right.
it is something that plays into a lot.
It
And
does.
give me an idea.
Yeah.
Think about it. Once you saw that sugar at 24, you're like, okay, well, let's see. I know what we can definitely fix. There's
Right.
19 things that could be wrong, but number 20 tells me,
Yep. I know.
but just that again, two things play into each other.
Yeah.
Um, I think I'd love to see, more recruiting in the community for EMS agencies. I think we're doing better than we did 5 years ago, but we're not where we need to be right now.
Oh, I know. And there's
Um,
such a national shortage, and it's an
right.
international shortage.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a medic over in London, and they're down where it's a national agency. They were down like hundreds of people,
Hmm.
because I mean, they cover the whole country.
Right.
But I mean, if your agency's down 10 and you've got 50, that's bad. If
Right.
your agency has 150 and you're down 25, that's still really bad.
Yeah.
Or
And
wasn't it someplace in Iowa or someplace in the Midwest where all their people just walked out? I remember reading they resigned someplace because I guess they didn't like the way somebody did something. I don't remember if it was a chief who had left or a director had left or something, but something happened and like everybody in the system walked out.
yeah, I don't remember hearing that. I do
Yeah.
know that there was one area, and I'm not sure where it was. It came up in one of the EMS chat groups a few weeks ago that medics who wanted to work like a 3-month contract stint,
Yeah.
if they were talking, I think mostly registry, but they were even talking state only.
Right.
If you were interested in going as a part of this team, but it was through a private like company or an employer entity
Yeah.
to a state, because that state governor is now stating that this is a state of emergency. Every one of their counties is short.
Right.
So the state emergency management has got somehow money together, contingency, whatever.
Yeah.
They're bringing a private group like mercenary medics, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you call 911 in that state, you're not going to get paramedics. They were looking at EMTs, medics, and it was, like $800 a month, a hotel stipend, meal
Yeah.
stipend. I mean, it was ridiculous money.
Oh,
I
I know.
looked
It's
at it
just
and
like
I'm like,
traveling nurse pay.
yeah, it basically was, the equivalent of that. But again, you mentioned nurses. Okay. Nurses, there's a national shortage.
Yeah.
Medics, there's a national shortage.
Yep.
EMTs, there's a national shortage. Now, the whys and wherefores, we can debate all day.
Yeah.
I know that my opinion that the medic national shortage, and I can open Pandora's box when I say this, they up and up and up the education requirements and all the hurdles to get there, because we're going to be better clinically, and I support every bit of that.
Oh, yeah. So do I.
But if the agencies on the end can't jack the money up high enough to make it worth your while to do that,
Yep.
And now, is it the agency's fault? Well, have reimbursements gone up enough to do that?
No.
When you look around here at one of the gas stations, we're saying, starting assistant managers, $22 an hour plus bonus with all these benefits.
Yeah.
Okay, if I can be an assistant manager at the Quickie Mart and make more than I made as when I was a medic,
Yeah.
make
Oh, I
more than I
know.
made when I was captain, or when you were here as lieutenant.
Yeah.
22 an hour starting. It's I loved what I did, and I
I
don't
know.
mind the money. I'm not bitching about that.
No.
But when you're driving, when you fill up the truck and you realize the kid behind the counter at the gas station didn't go to school for 2 years to do this, and
I know. I mean, it's
it's
crazy. I passed by a coffee shop and they had a sign out front that they were hiring, and it was $17.50 an hour to work
yeah, yep,
slinging donuts and coffee.
yeah,
And I'm like, good God, that's more than some EMTs are making.
yep. And the
And
thing
gas
is,
is $3, and I paid $3.25 a gallon today.
okay,
I
we
mean,
had
70
gotten
bucks.
down to about 240 down in South Carolina, 240, 250.
Well,
It was
yeah,
316 yesterday. It's going back up on us.
yeah, I know.
And, but yeah, everything's going up. And right now, I don't necessarily think EMS as a whole is going to collapse. I think agencies are going to have to get more creative
Yeah,
with how they approach things. I've seen some agencies do a really good job of using EMTs and advanced EMTs, or I'm going to call them intermediates, and everyone can yell at me, but using them more effectively.
yeah. Up here, I've found that we use the advanced EMTs a lot more than you'd expect. Their
Mm-hmm.
scope of practice down there is more
Minimum.
advanced than believe it or not, they can do more in South Carolina than they can in New Hampshire.
Really?
Yeah,
Now
but
that's I'll tell you, because when I came here from North Carolina, I went North Carolina, South Carolina.
yeah,
Our intermediates in North Carolina could do a whole lot more than our intermediates or advanced now here in South Carolina.
yeah,
And I know I had an intermediate partner at one point, and I'm like, So why can't you do this, this, and this? Why do you need me to do as the paramedic to do this, this, and this? He goes, they won't let us do any of that. And I'm like, so what good are you?
Yeah.
Because, yeah. And I didn't mean it to be mean. I didn't mean it to be nasty. I didn't mean to get thrown out of the office for it. But,
Yeah.
the other side of the coin was, good EMTs, good AEMTs can be a major asset in the medic shortage.
Right.
They've got to also, and I said this, and this was in a discussion with a medic the other day. I said, I know what our intermediates were, and I'll call them intermediates. In North Carolina, we ran intermediate trucks.
Yeah.
If you called for a paramedic backup and it was not, pretty well, it was not at least somewhat justified,
Yeah.
you'd get questioned afterwards. What were you thinking? We need to go over this. There's an educational problem here. And I always joked, not naming any names, but where you and I worked together for a while, that
Yeah.
every EMT or every intermediate always had a paramedic on the truck with them.
Yeah.
I think that was bad in a way because it made them so dependent.
Yeah.
They
Up here, we
never.
run a lot of A trucks. The fire
Mm-hmm,
department I'm with part time, I'm the only medic who lives in town. Our
mm-hmm,
fire department is staffed by full time A's, firefighter
mm-hmm.
A's, and they do a great job.
Yeah,
There's times I'll go out on a call and I'm like, "Hey, what you got?" And they're like, "Oh, you can have a good night." They'll tell me what they've got, and I'm like, "If you're comfortable, I don't see anything that I'm going to do that you can't do."
yep,
I mean, they carry nitrous on the trucks up here, and if it's, some agencies don't, and you'll hear them calling for a paramedic just for pain control.
right.
You know,
Now, where I was in North Carolina, our fire department ran intermediate level ambulance.
yeah,
The only time county paramedics were sent out automatically with us was cardiac arrest, pediatric arrest, or pediatric not breathing.
right,
Anything short of those, it was up to us to get on scene, assess it, and call for it if we needed it.
yeah,
But
and
the
make
other
them
side of
chase
the
you,
well, sometimes it was chase, sometimes meet up on the way to the hospital.
right,
But okay, if you're going to meet up on the way to the hospital, you're on scene, especially if things start to go bad and you're realizing it, you're having trouble catching it.
yeah,
You ask, hey, look, is county backup available?
yeah,
There's more than one time you'd hear one of our old dispatchers say, buddy, that's a negative. I don't have anything between you and the hospital. It looks like it's all yours.
yeah,
And it's like, okay, I mean, now, again, we trained for it, we practiced it, we did it all the time. So for us, it was, we documented, called for backup, unavailable when an emergency.
yeah,
Now our agency policy was pretty much, pencil written as far as if you're going to go in code, you're going to
yeah,
go in emergent, you need to at least check on county truck.
right,
So, I checked on the county truck, nothing available. I went in emergent. But then again, there were times that we would go in emergent for something without even checking on a county truck.
hmm. Well, if you knew there wasn't going to be, because sometimes that between my location and the hospital, there's no way a medic could catch you anyway,
Well, there's
unless they
that.
happen to be getting dinner at the restaurant between you and the hospital.
Well, there's that, but there's also the situation. I can think of one or two that we went in emergent that we did not call, and we sort of had to justify to command why not. But we had one that was a really bad GI bleed,
Yeah,
puking blood everywhere.
yeah,
Now, I'm an intermediate. The other guy on the truck's an intermediate. It's his ride. I'm driving. As we're getting loaded, he said, "What do you think about calling for county?" I'm like, is there a paramedic skill? You and me talking here now as veteran
yeah,
paramedics. Is there anything we have in the magical paramedic bag of tricks and the wand and everything for GI bleed everywhere? No, there's not.
I
That
mean,
paramedic has
maybe
no more
TXA, but not really.
what?
Maybe TXA, but not really. I mean,
Okay, but if an agency didn't have that per se,
yeah, not a damn thing.
so it's like, okay, that's not even okay, active stroke.
Yeah.
Unless they need like an airway issue, I got news for you. Time is brain, and we don't need to even think about. Let's not entertain that.
Oh, I know.
We got at one point questioned by upper brass because we didn't call for a backup on a stroke. We went and emergent ourselves.
What's a
And it
medic
was like,
going to do? He can't do TPA, and he's not going to go in and do brain surgery to get this clot out.
exactly. But again, that was as intermediates. We're
Yeah,
deciding because we had the county protocol book. We had the same ones they did,
yeah,
and we're looking. We're like, okay, there's nothing in the paramedic book on this. Yes, they definitely need to go emergent because we barely got a radial pulse.
right.
No, they don't need a paramedic because they've got internal GI bleed.
Yeah,
So do it yourself.
right.
Do it your damn self. And we did. And I got another topic for you. And this was brought up in the last couple of weeks. I've been chatting with different people and working on a little mentoring stuff. And this is sort of a lot of stuff. And okay, you get this person, they're EMT, they've gone through paramedic school. It was actually brought up to me by someone, and very intelligent individual, very, very hardworking. I would consider one of those, I don't want to necessarily say super high performance, but very motivated, very
Yeah,
structured, busted their butt through paramedic school. They've dealt with hardships in their life and went through them like a head first through a brick wall kind of thing.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, they take their registry and crash and burn on the red
Ooh.
on their first time. What do we say to that person?
It destroyed their ego and their self-confidence. And
Yep.
it happens. Study the sections you
Oh my
missed.
God, I don't belong here. Oh my God, my
Yeah,
career
you
is
do.
over. My life is over. Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
Well, we had a med control doctor years and years ago that would prescribe to paramedics, students that worked for the county, Ativan for the night before they took their written test because test anxiety gets to some people.
Yeah.
And that student that possibly just failed for the first time very well could have been cramming all night, which is a no-no.
Right.
I always tell people relax, try not to stress it. Okay, you fail it the first time, big deal. It is a big deal,
It's
but
it's it's a big deal to them, but to those of us who have been around a while,
yeah,
yeah, I know people who have taken the national registry written multiple times
oh yeah,
and finally passed it. You only got to pass it once, by the way.
yeah.
You
And
can take
the
it
difference
3,
between
4, 5 times, pass it once, and
the difference between somebody who takes the class 3 times and passes it, and the person who passes it the first time. You know what the difference is? Nothing. They're both still medics or
yeah,
still EMTs.
yeah. And I feel so sorry for this individual because they were very. It was really like a emotional upheaval, and I'm like, oh no, 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 no! Trust me,
Yeah.
this is not as bad as you think it is.
Wait until your
Breathe,
first divorce.
or second, or
The
third.
second third. Yep.
I mean, honestly, if you stay in EMS long enough, like you'll only have one.
Yep.
Well, actually, you figured that out. You never get married again, so
Yeah. Yeah, you know how that goes. The first
hey,
wife, it is what it is.
yep.
But no, you tell them, suck it up, drive on, test again, and study the stuff because they give you a breakdown on what you missed. Say you
Mhm.
missed I remember reading something on Registry's own site that said 66% of people who failed at that period failed on OBGYN. And you know why? Because
Maybe they just don't know how to make babies, or it's the call we don't run.
it's the call we don't run and the call that they don't put a lot of time in paramedic school or EMT school in. They show you a picture, they say, this is where a baby comes from. And you go, ew, or oh
It all
boy.
depends on the picture.
Well, that's true. It's not like it's Penthouse Forum or something. But
Right. Maybe that's an educational barrier that we could overcome.
possibly. Well, I'll wind up in HR.
Maybe we need to change the curriculum and change some of the pictures in the curriculum. Might get better attention, retention. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? But if you succeed at everything in your life, without failure, what's the learning process there? I mean, granted, I'm probably going to sound really old when I say this, but everybody doesn't get a trophy for everything.
I did say that tonight was the dinosaur special edition, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
So,
just wanted to make sure.
yeah.
But then again, this is, and I don't know, maybe it's me. I think, part of, I joke about being the dinosaur special edition, but on the other side, it's like, we can turn around and maybe, these kids can learn something a little bit along the way from the dinosaurs.
Yeah. And, I walked into the break room one day at work recently, and I looked around, and everyone in there was younger than my daughter.
Congratulations, Joe, you're old.
Yeah. And then I started calculating how many kids in that room it would take to reach my age. And I could build 2 ambulances and still have some left over.
I can hear you on that one.
And I'm like, this just isn't right. Maybe it's time for me to pack it in. And I'm like, nah, I kind of still enjoy it too much. There are days where I go, I've had enough of this shit.
Right.
I don't want to smell another pair of nasty feet. Or other anatomical parts.
Well, I was going to say, so there goes that job at Al Bundy's shoe store, too.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I don't know if Peg is there. It might be worth the job, but oh, for the kids that are watching, that was a show, back in the 90s? About 10 years before you were born.
Yep. Yeah, people are not going to get some of our cultural references, but yeah.
I know.
But I think the people now and again, I will say culturally, there's a difference in a little bit of it because I think as to a point, now I'm not saying 100%, but our group was a little bit more nicer and more supportive of each other. Our generation was, maybe.
We did I
know when my intermediate partner just kept failing the paramedic exam time and time again.
Yeah.
I sat there and I looked at him and I was like, look, we'll study. We'll work on this. It's okay.
Yep.
And we're sitting outside the old Dew Street station. And he's like, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that happened. Oh, my God. And there were other people who worked at the same agency who were in the same class who passed.
Yeah.
And so it was going to be very obvious if, oh, yeah, you all went to class and they all got their patch and you didn't. And he was all of a sudden like, dude, yeah, shit happens.
Yeah.
But, if, folks, if you crash and burn on your first time, if you fail epically, I mean, as long as the computer doesn't just start laughing while you're taking the little electronic test, you didn't do that bad.
Yeah.
Now, if the computer starts laughing,
well, see, I had to worry about hurting myself because I had to chisel my answers in stone.
Right. Right.
So, and trying to deliver that tablet to registry back then was
Hmm.
definitely interesting. The pterodactyl would fly in and pick it up with its claws. That's how we knew
Right.
somebody failed, because it grabbed the student instead of the tablet.
Yep.
But
But now I will say this: they're a little bit spoiled in the fact that they like take the test and they log in that night and they find out.
yeah,
You remember going every day? It's like, oh, mail carrier was there. Was it going to be a big envelope or a little envelope?
yeah.
Yeah. We were chasing mail trucks up and down the street like freaking dogs.
It looked
Yeah.
like the kid chasing the ice cream truck.
Yeah. And the thing
Or as
was,
Eddie
when,
Murphy said, you can't have no ice cream because you're on the welfare.
I remember that. But no, I remember when I worked at the airport doing renting cars, and I was waiting to get my results back from my EMT basic. And I had to work like 2 to 10. And so I'd leave around 1 o'clock. I'd leave the house. And it's like if the mail hadn't come by like 1 o'clock,
Yeah.
because I'd check the mail when I was leaving. Big
Oh, yeah.
envelope, nothing. Got to go to
Because
work.
if
I'm
your
going to be
card
late.
came in, you were going to quit your job that day.
You just had to know.
I
I mean,
know.
honestly, even without wanting to quit my job, it's like, how did I do? How did I do? How did I do? How did I do? Because, okay. So then I'd be sitting there and it's like, we'd get a break at the airport around 7 o'clock at night. I'm calling the house, asking my folks, because I still lived at home at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big envelope, little envelope. We're in the middle of dinner.
Did mail come? Anything for me?
Yeah, there's something here from you, but I threw it downstairs in your room and I'm in the middle of dinner. I can't get it now. Dad, you mean?
I
Yeah.
know.
But no, we had to wait to chase down mail. Oh yeah, that was definitely an adventure. Definitely an adventure.
Well,
But yeah.
now, the state of Maine now, if you're affiliated with an EMS agency or fire department, you can go to paramedic school for free.
Mm,
They just came up with all kinds of money. One of my
yeah.
friends, he lives in Maine. He was he got a job part time for one of the fire departments doing fire EMS, and he's going to start paramedic school for free.
That's sweet.
And now I think it's like $15,000 or something for medic school up here.
Well, I know when I was in North Carolina, because I was active with a fire department. It was
Yeah,
fire department, rescue squad, certified law enforcement agency. You could take CE classes, not regular courses, but CE
yeah.
classes through the community college system for free.
Oh, that's nice.
So I had to pay for my basic
Yeah,
and my books and all that stuff. When I went for intermediate,
yeah.
the state paid for everything except my books.
Nice.
And when I went for paramedic, the state paid for everything except my books.
That's a good deal.
But the thing was, and that's why I was saying before, I tell people get involved with your, fire departments or agencies. Not only do you get the experience, you get experience so you're better, but you also get to experience it to decide if this is where you want to be.
Yeah,
But then you come down the other side and say, hey, look, maybe some educational benefits there.
I know.
But yeah, it was interesting.
And every state offers different things.
Yeah.
And every state's protocols are different. Even though they've got the national registry,
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina is different than Maine, which is different from New Hampshire. And it's
Yep.
like we were talking about that today because I'm licensed in 3 states. Well, no, my South Carolina just expired. First
Right.
time 27, 28 years that I haven't held a South Carolina ticket.
Yep.
But I'm licensed in Maine and New Hampshire, and just the differences on what medications I can use in each state.
Mm-hmm.
And depending where you work, if you go mutual aid to the other state,
Mm-hmm.
it was you have to follow their protocols if the call initiates in their state. So
Really?
you have to be licensed in that state, and you have to follow their protocols. It's like in New Hampshire, I could push morphine, where in Maine I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So technically I'd have to have two different drug boxes, and I'd have to remember
See,
that
that's
I could
now.
use this med here, but not this med there.
Mm-hmm. Now, is your agency, are you licensed in both states?
Yeah,
Okay. See, that's different down, say, here
yeah,
than it would be. The way they were doing it, I know during a lot of the disasters and stuff,
yeah,
if we as a South Carolina entity went up into North Carolina,
yeah,
we even though it's a call in North Carolina going to North Carolina, it's all North Carolina. Our med control, our protocols, our DHEC stuff, and our cards were all down here, and
right.
it made more sense. Now, if you're
Oh yeah,
licensed in two states, I can see that getting kind of weird.
yeah,
But it's
and
like,
it
okay,
was.
it's like right now. Let's say there's a big storm that comes down in Georgia.
Well, see, that's a different type of thing because if you're working under as a national disaster or a state disaster, then we follow our own protocols for our state.
Right,
But
right,
if we go to the other state because we're working a border town,
right.
then we have to operate under that license.
See, with us, even in the border town situation,
Yeah,
even if it was just not a disaster, it was a call because they were out of trucks and our
yeah,
border town was the next closest over.
yeah,
It's like if Madison County went into Tennessee,
yeah,
we were North Carolina medics on a North Carolina licensed truck. We're just here helping you out. We're going to do this North Carolina style.
yeah,
It would be, think about this. When you were down here, if we went, say, one county north of us, and
yeah,
they said, oh, well, here you've got to call for orders for LASIX, and our side we can give up to, 80 on
yeah,
standing.
yeah,
We wouldn't have to change our protocols and retrain ourselves. I think, for
yeah.
providers, that's dangerous.
Oh, I know. And
That's
here
dangerous.
we've got statewide protocols, so we don't call for orders for anything.
Right.
We just do what we have to do. I mean, narcs, the whole shooting match. We
Yeah.
just do what we have to do and basically tell them when we get there.
Right. Which that was one of the greatest changes down here when they got the narcs on standings down here.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, having been out of it for a while, I don't know what the county protocols look like. I know they've changed a lot, I've heard, but,
Yeah.
I've always been, sort of 50-50 on that idea.
Mm.
So any more advice you've got for the brand newbies before we cut it off for the evening? Let you get some rest because you've been running all day.
Yeah, just keep plugging at it. Don't give up. If it's in your heart and you find that this is what you want to do, if you're doing it because maybe I'll give it a shot, and anybody can take a class, but if you find that it interests you, and the more you do your ride time, the more into it you get, you're like, I really like this. I really want to do this. One kick in the nuts isn't enough to stop you, which is one failing test. Hell, there's been all kinds of tests people have failed through life. I know I've failed a bunch.
Right.
We all have.
And we've both known
Nobody's
people who have failed registry 3, 4, 5, 7 times. Yeah.
Oh, I
And still
know.
passed it eventually.
Yeah.
And got the same card as the people who passed it the first time.
I knew a guy who passed the registry test when we did it years ago. He calls me and says, "You're not going to believe this. I got my results." And I said, "How'd you do?" And he said, "I got 100%. I scored 150 out of 150." And I said, "You're shitting me, right?" I said, "Nobody's ever done that." This guy was extremely book smart.
Right.
He couldn't figure out how to draw blood with a syringe after he started his line and started fluid running. But he could build a house just by reading a book. And I think you know who I'm talking about.
I might.
Yeah. But
What's the initials?
JD,
Um, we'll talk later.
yeah. But, guy was extremely smart, but he lacked a little bit on the common sense side. And there's, like they always say, you adapt and you overcome. And that's where the common sense. You could be not a great test taker, but
Mm-hmm.
you could be a damn good EMT or paramedic.
Mm-hmm.
People have test anxiety, but once you pass and get in the street, because I've had students that have been, kind of questionable, but the more you work with them, you see
Mm-hmm.
that they know exactly what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't have the confidence yet.
Right.
And then you'll have the ones who are extremely confident, and you're like, there's no way they're going to make it doing this.
Or you have the ones that are so confident. I know this a couple that we had come through that were super, super confident, knew everything, totally book smart and everything else. And they ended up getting put with an older, crustier, dinosaurish veteran medic from a metro area who basically ended up looking at them and saying, dude, not saying you don't know all the book stuff and this, that, and the other, but if you don't start paying attention to the simple shit, you're
Yeah.
going to stack bodies.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
dangerous out here.
And that's what it is.
Yeah, I watched one come with a 4-year degree or a 2-year, 4-year degree, and he had a graduation pin he used to wear from whatever school he went to, and it was one of the most prestigious paramedic schools on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And it was rated and nationally reviewed, and they did.
Yeah.
He couldn't talk to human beings.
Yeah.
There was nothing more fun than taking him down on the mill hill with this, 70s, 80-year-old woman who's, her senior year was 6th grade.
Oh, I know.
Well, I need to get a complete pharmacological review of what medications you're on. And she's like, boy, where are you from?
That's right.
I mean, it literally was, dude,
You
you've
have a
got to change.
diabetic issue. I have the sugars. Is that like,
I got high blood.
yeah,
Okay. Pressure or sugar? Work with me, sunshine.
that's right.
Well, no, I ain't got no problem with my sugar ever since I started taking the shot, doc.
That's right.
Or I ain't diabetic no more. They don't have to take shots. I got pills now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we hear this, and I'm not making fun of people,
No,
but it's
not at
part
all.
of, it is very, very much part of learning to talk to human beings,
Yeah.
learning to talk to other human beings.
And
Everything
that's
we
not
do,
something they can teach you in school.
you can be the most brilliant clinician and, calculate dopamine in your head with your eyes closed. Guess what? If you can't adequately assess and talk to people and exchange information and come up with a presumptive or working diagnosis,
Yeah.
your skills are useless.
One thing I have noticed a lot with the classes that I've been seeing the students come through, people can't take manual blood pressures anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
They're so reliant on the different automated machines.
The nurse on a stick. Yeah. We actually got in a great discussion on that in the office. I was talking the other day. One of the people who she works secretarial with us, and
Yeah.
she says, "Oh wow, my friend isn't feeling well." I said, "Yeah," and she goes, "Her blood pressure's high." I said, "Well, how high is it?" And she said, "Well, she says it's 229 over 147."
Oops, something's wrong.
And I'm like, "Okay." I said, "I don't believe it."
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, look here." She sent me a picture and she showed me the screenshot of the little blue LED display
Yeah.
for my home wrist cuff monitor.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, back to basics, fundamentals here. You and I have been around long enough. You remember when at the county. We had a written policy. I don't know who that cranky old dinosaur was who wrote it. That said, if you get something that's not consistent with what you think it should be, turn the machine off, take it manually.
Yep.
If you don't, it's considered that you didn't bother to take a blood pressure because you obviously got garbage.
Yeah.
How many times did we see people with, 58/20, and they're talking to me, and they've got a radial pulse?
Yep.
Yeah. But again, the machines are nice. They are a tool.
Oh, yeah.
Pulse oxes are nice. Whether it's carbon monoxide or oxygen. In fact, I did a chat on that the other day about toys in EMS.
Yeah.
They're great. Any tool, you've got to know its limitations.
Yeah.
You know, RSI or PAI or whatever, pharmaceutically induced innovation, it's great. Realize its benefits and its limitations.
Yep.
IV fluid management, realize its benefits and its limitations. Yeah.
Well, it's like, now I know I'm a dinosaur, but I still, my first set of vitals, 9 times out of 10, a manual. You know, I do a manual blood pressure. I still have the same stethoscope I've had for like almost 30 years. I have replaced the tubing, but you know, it was quality when I bought it. It still works extremely well. And you know, it's mine. But you know, and then I know that if I take the second one with the monitor and it gives me something relatively close to what I had, you know, okay, I can trust the monitor. Now,
Right.
if I take the first one with the monitor and it gives me 200 over 160 and Grandma Jones is 85 pounds, not complaining of anything at all, no headache, no nothing. And she's going to the hospital because she stubbed her toe on the coffee table and has a
Right.
decent lack, you know. And I check it manually after that, and I get, 140s over 70s, okay, which is right? I tend to believe my ears,
Right.
you know.
But yeah, it's like I remember people getting all offended when I suggested that we should always check, manual first. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, folks.
But they're teaching them how to use monitors for everything in school.
Right.
And that's all well and good, but I had a crew want to take a truck out of service because their automatic blood pressure cuff didn't work. And they got highly offended when I said, "Don't you have a BP cuff on the truck and a stethoscope?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm looking at you right now and I see 2 ears on your head and 2 eyes on the front of your face." I said, "Obviously, you can see the dial on the BP cuff and you can hear what it's doing."
Yeah.
And then they said, "Oh, yeah, well, I did do that and I got 129 over 75." And I said, "How is that possible when it's got
Yeah.
odd, even numbers on?"
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, it was kind of in between this one and that one."
Okay. Fine. Pick one or the other. But no, I mean the thing when the other day when she's showing me this little wrist cuff that
Yeah,
her friend sent the picture of, and I'm like, okay, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. To me, as someone, because she's like, well, what should she do? Should she call them? I was like, to me, find a real way to take a BP cuff. Does she have any
right.
symptoms at all? Okay, Joe, think of it. You check someone's sugar, it's 25.
Yeah,
Well, we're gonna give them dextrose, so we're gonna do something. We know this
yeah,
prompts a reaction.
yeah,
We put them on the monitor. We see VFib. This prompts a reaction.
yep,
Okay. You see like 229 over 147 or whatever the hell it was. This
yeah,
should prompt a reaction.
yep,
I don't buy that. And it was so funny because her friend ended up going to urgent care.
yeah.
BP
Paid
was high, but
$50.
BP was high, but not that high.
Yeah.
I was in 160 systolic range, 168, I think,
Yeah.
systolic. And I'm like, okay. But, and she's got a history of hypertension, been on BP meds, and possibly, I think, my gut was worked up a tolerance on the bed she's been on forever.
Yeah.
It just ain't doing the job the way it used to anymore. Where she got a little older, where she metabolized a little faster.
Right.
But, should she call 911? Her BP is 247. What?
They would have laughed at her. First, they would have taken that wrist BP cuff and thrown it in the trash.
And they're not always bad, but again, any number you've got to combine with patient reaction.
Right.
Well, you remember the story about when my mother was in the hospital, right?
Yeah.
They were all gung ho that night. They're going to put her back in ICU because her O2 sat kept falling into the 50s.
Yeah.
And she was awake and talking to them.
Yeah.
She also had a long history of peripheral vascular disease. You touch her hands, they were ice.
Right.
Both sides, ice cold.
Yeah. Yep.
So we've got a pulse ox. Oh, her pulse ox keeps dropping into the 50s. We're going to put her in the ICU on a vent. She's talking to you.
Why don't you give her a hot pack to hold on to and then check her blood? Check her.
No, actually, I asked the nurse. I was like, "Do y'all have a pediatric pulse ox probe?" And like, no. Why? I'm like, "You have a little sticky adhesive pulse ox probe?" No. Why? I was like, "I'll be back." I went downstairs, out the front, around to the side. You can guess where I was at.
Yep.
Sweet talk somebody in the EMS bay to a peds probe, back around upstairs. And it took me a good hour to get all this, put together.
Yeah.
Go upstairs, did this, put it on her earlobe.
Yeah.
Her sat was 93.
Right.
You were about to transfer a patient to ICU, knock him down, and put him on a ventilator.
Because they had cold hands.
Just cold hands.
Yeah.
Because of poor peripheral circulation. She's 83. She's allowed to have shitty circulation.
Right.
But again, it's a machine. It's a tool.
Right.
It can be a benefit. It can be a loss.
Yeah. And that's what I tell everybody. Don't put 100% stock in your machines. Use your guts and your knowledge and your eyes and your ears. Use all your senses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, be a little bit more aware of the patient, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have all this fancy stuff when we started.
Our fire chief, and I bitched about it at the time, but I'll give him credit now. He was very restrictive. And when I say restrictive, I actually mean restrictive with who from the ambulance crew was allowed to use the pulse ox.
Yeah.
And in order to become allowed to use a pulse ox, now this guy was a jerk about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
He was a downright jackass about a lot of stuff. But I will give him credit for one thing. The whole concept of you had to pass his written test on a pulse ox before you were allowed to use it.
Right.
So let's say if, you had an intermediate who'd been there a while who was, passed the test and done all this, they could use it. Anyone else, it wasn't to come out of the compartment. Do I agree with it? No, I don't really agree with it, but I understand where he was coming from.
He wanted them to improve their assessment skills.
No, his big thing was
just a dick.
I think that was some of it, but I think a lot of it was also this is a tool, but if we're going to blindly follow the tool, because his test was like 10 questions, what do you do with this? And he might give you a patient that's got a SAT of 100%.
Yeah.
Breathing 32 times a minute, states they can't catch their breath. How much O2 do you put them on?
Yeah.
If they're breathing 32 times a minute, says they can't, and there's a high heart rate, and says they can't catch their breath, if you don't know to ignore that 100% and treat your patient, not the machine,
Yeah.
yeah.
How many people have you seen that strictly use the pulse ox for a pulse and a sat and never check a radial pulse?
Too many.
Yeah. I constantly see that.
Yeah.
And then what happens when they're looking at the pulse ox and it's 80 and you reach down and you're like, huh, strange. I can feel 140, 150, irregular. You know, you're feeling all this other stuff.
Yeah. My biggest thing is their skin cool or clam or yeah. I
Yeah.
can tell, or again, I can get a number a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
But strength, regularity, skin conditions, I got all this other information. You gave up that assessment information.
Right.
Congratulations. That was an A assessment. Yours was a D minus assessment.
Yeah.
You got the number. You get the number.
I know. Well, I
Well,
heard today that I asked about doing an apical check on a cardiac arrest,
mm-hmm,
because they said they didn't feel pulses. I was like, okay, maybe this patient is extremely hypotensive,
mm-hmm,
right? So I said, why don't you take a quick listen to their heart? You've got a $500 stethoscope hanging around your neck. Why don't you listen and see if you hear anything?
mm-hmm.
And they said, that's above my skill level. The state won't allow me to assess that. And I was kind of a little taken back
Mm-hmm.
because what's invasive about it? I mean, if you can't hear bump 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 bump,
Yeah.
you know, it just it
I
didn't make
can't
any
think of it
sense.
being a skill that's, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, hell, some places are doing field ultrasounds for cardiac arrest.
right. But even, okay. In school, we listened to breath sounds. My biggest thing, and I'll admit I was lazy, they were always telling us to listen to, bowel sounds.
Yeah, but it takes forever to listen to bowel sounds.
That and, okay, show me, unless I'm really, really wondering something, GI, it's like not giving me a lot.
Yeah,
What's the return on my time investment?
yeah,
But yeah, to listen to apical, that makes perfect sense. I don't know.
no idea. So I listened, didn't hear anything. So it matched
Right.
what we had on the monitor, matched pulses and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But I also had somebody else on a different time put the monitor on somebody, went to analyze because it wasn't a paramedic truck, and it said shock advised. Guess what they were using at the time? A Lucas. Forgot to turn the Lucas off in the heat of the moment. Delivered the
Oops.
first shock with the Lucas thumping along.
Well, at least we didn't have a lot of hands-off time at our CPR.
Exactly. That's when they told me, and they said, "Oh yeah, they weren't assistantly when we turned it off," and it said no shock advised. I said, "Well, yeah, they probably were in the beginning."
Oh, I tell you what, I'm going to take a quick break. I have got to run to the restroom. I'm kind of floating over here, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, I know how that goes.
Yeah, I've got a little bit too much coffee in me. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I know
I-
I know what you mean.
I'll be back here in a second.
All right. Well, I guess the world is going to sit here and look at me while he's off doing his thing. Kind of interesting, isn't it? But if it is a career that you're thinking about, or if you're in, enjoy it as long as you can and teach the young and young listen to the old a little bit. We didn't get this crotchety and miserable and nasty and lovable. Well, I kind of had to throw that in there, without doing our time in the streets, just like you will someday. And hopefully you learn enough where I wouldn't be ashamed to have somebody come up and be actually taking care of me. Because we've all had students where it's like, oh, good God, may they never show up at my house. Or you've had the other ones that it's like, them ought to let them treat me or my children, or, it's not the eat your young career anymore. Now, we do have some fun at times. And people say medics, cops, firemen have a dark sense of humor, but it's a way of de-stressing after some really serious stuff, because you are really seeing people in their worst times of their lives, because you're not always delivering happy, healthy babies and getting, if you're into fire, getting cats out of trees for 900-year-old senior citizens. It's not always the glamour and happy stuff. There's more of the sad and depressing stuff than people think. And people are going to ask you, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? Well, when they ask you that, they're making you relive the worst thing of your life. So they need to realize that. And then a lot of people, if you go to tell them, they don't want to know. But it's good to talk to your partners.
Yeah, I just sort of caught the end of what you were saying there, and that's a big one right there. I'll say this to all the newbies out there, to all the people who are just getting interested into it or going to your news station or this, that, and the other. Don't ask that question. Don't do it. Because number one, we may not want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Number two, I've had people do it, and I looked at them, and it was really interesting. It was at a school that we were doing a bunch of classes at, and had it happened in the first two teachers that we were doing these classes at, we were doing a stop the bleed. If it had happened to either one of them, I know those teachers would have called these kids out. It was the third or fourth class of the day, but it was the third teacher, and she was very young and very inexperienced. And someone asked me what the worst thing. I said, yeah, you don't want to go there. That's not what you want to see today. You don't want to hear about that before lunch.
Yeah.
And these high school kids kept pushing, and I'm like, nah, you don't want to go there. You don't want to go there. And they kept pushing.
Yeah.
And one guy made a smart ass comment about, something, and I just wheeled around and I let fly. And all I can say is, once upon a time, I saw somebody, I didn't see it happen, but I saw the remnants of somebody falling into an underground furnace.
Yeah.
And I pretty much sat there, and the darker it went, the more my little mind started to enjoy their reaction.
Mm. Oh, I know.
And my reaction, I was like having fun with it. I was like, okay, I'll put it to you this way. I want you to visualize. You ever seen that one burger that just falls down of the grill and
So we're having barbecue for lunch.
And literally it just sits in there because the underground furnace was where they burned a bunch of scrap debris and wood and building materials. And it was at an industrial facility. And this guy looked like the burger that fell. I mean, it was very, very, very memorable on a lot of levels.
Oh, I'm sure.
And to me, it wasn't distressing or troubling emotionally. It was just worst thing I've ever seen is that's the remnants of a human being.
Yeah.
I've gone into, because I've got the fire background.
Yeah.
I can sit there and tell them about it, how many different crispy critters I've seen. I
Oh, I
can
know.
sit there and tell them what steam does to a human being located 2 floors above the fire.
Yeah. Speaking of barbecue,
Yes.
my girlfriend had a package delivered yesterday
Hmm.
from a barbecue place between your house and Columbia
Okay.
over in Newbury.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the box came in the mail and it was sitting outside. And, it's a little bit chilly here. So
Right.
I asked her, I said, does that need to be put in the fridge? She said, no, I just ordered some barbecue sauce. I was like, oh, okay.
It'll be frozen.
Yeah. But it's amazing the things you relate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crispy
Now,
critters, barbecue sauce.
hmm now, if she wants to order some really good coffee, we can hook her up with that,
Okay. Yeah.
because we'll definitely hook her up with that because Coffee Brand Coffee, I know I mentioned them to you. They're
Yeah.
not only helping us out with sponsorship on this, but we've got the promo code Valor SDS. You get a 5% discount on it, but we get, I think, a 2% kickback or something on the deal. But yeah, I enjoy pimping out their coffee a lot because that flavor on the left, that blueberry cobbler.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mess with that stuff, but I'll tell you, the ladies in our office, they love it.
Huh.
And that French toast on the right,
Yeah.
they love it.
Wow.
And that double caffeinated in the middle, I love it.
What's it like? A really dark roast?
No, it's actually a medium roast.
Oh.
I learned that like different the way the roasting times and different darknesses go, a
Yeah.
lot of times the darker tastes a lot stronger, but it cooks some of the caffeine out of it.
Ah.
That the medium to medium light roasts actually have more caffeine in them.
Oh, wow.
So I will frequently do a cup where I've got like medium and dark, sort of half and half, because I
Yeah.
use like rather large cups. I can do a cup like this with 1 K cup of medium and 1 K cup of dark in it, and it gives me a little bit more of a kick in the ass.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
But
like
yeah.
good strong coffee, but I drink mine black, so
Hmm.
you know.
Speaking of your girlfriend,
uh, speaking of which, we were talking about Archie Bunker and George Jefferson the other day
they could not exist today.
when Sammy Davis Jr. walked in and kissed Archie.
Yeah.
We were talking about that. And one of the guys at work says, I remember that episode. I
Hmm.
watched it with my father. And I was like, really? That's pretty funny. And he
Yeah.
said, yeah. Only reason I remember it was because it was on like two weeks ago or something on like one of I don't remember what network, but and I was like, oh. I, I said, how old's your father? And he said, 49. And I I just wanted to smack the kid.
Yeah.
But he said it was the funniest thing he'd seen.
Yeah.
And he said his father was pissing himself laughing.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's gotten to the point where good old fashioned humor, comedians back from when we were younger would never survive today because they'd be too
Oh,
offensive.
I know. Oh, I know.
Could you imagine some of the shit George Carlin or Eddie Murphy or whoever, you know, did back then?
I
Richard
never
Pryor.
saw I never saw Eddie Murphy live, but I saw that stand-up movie that came out to theaters, Raw, and
Yeah.
everybody was warning people about it, and I thought it was hilarious. And I'm
Oh,
like,
I know. I
yeah,
know. I saw George Carlin live, And it was definitely an interesting show and probably
Right.
one of the funniest ones I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And, like Richard Pryor and
Mm-hmm.
all the ones of that age, these days, they couldn't do the same
Yeah.
comedy.
Yeah. Comedy is going crazy, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Comedy's
But
been going backwards like medicine has been going forwards.
mm-hmm. I mean, think about, you mentioned George Jefferson and Archie. Think about all the stuff George Jefferson ever said to the Willises.
Oh, I know.
Anything he said.
Yeah.
And you randomly take an episode of the Jeffersons that the Willises are in and look at anything he says in
Oh, I
that
know.
episode.
Yep.
We'll cut that, we'll cut that, we'll cut that. Yeah, George is now a deaf mute.
Yeah. Well, they did a remake of All in the Family, and I think was it Woody Harrelson that played George? I mean, Archie. I
I
think
don't
they did
remember
it
that.
probably 5 years ago. It was on regular commercial TV,
Wow.
but they did the remake because they did like a run of remakes of shows from like the 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of them. And I think I watched it for about 15 minutes and I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Right.
I mean, they tried really hard to do it properly, but they had to do it extremely politically correct because they didn't want to lose the viewership or get sued
Right.
or offend anybody.
Right.
But the older you get, the more offensive you get anyway, from what I've been told.
Yeah.
you know, at
Yeah.
my weekly HR meetings. But
But now, okay, you think about this. I'm going to drag this right back to our regular topic, okay?
yeah,
I go back to when I first started in the business and was writing clinical and this, that, and the other. If you screwed up on a call, your preceptor told you. If you screwed up, something significant, you heard about it.
oh yeah,
Nowadays, I'm wondering if some of these poor preceptors are so worried about, getting called out. These FTOs are worried about getting called out.
oh they
You
are.
you can't, can you look at the new EMT now or the new paramedic and say, look, I'm just starting to wonder, do you really think EMS is where you be? Because I think you've got a hell of a future, maybe in palliative care or hospice or something else.
I know.
But this isn't the job for you.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they go to management. They're being mean to me.
Yeah.
No. Okay, I remember, and you probably know the person I'm talking about, and I'm going to mention the name because it's not actually their name. They were riding as a third person observer in their orientation with two veteran medics.
Yeah.
The two veteran medics they got canceled off a call or something else, and so they decided they were going to grab something to eat. They whipped into a restaurant, fast food joint, and the EMT newbie in the back decided that they didn't want whatever the restaurant was. Well, I don't want to eat this. I don't. The crew looked at him point blank in the face and said, "Did anyone ask you what you want?
yeah.
Look, we're here, our truck, you're riding along, we're pulling into, if you want to get something to eat, great. If you don't want to get something to eat, that's fine too. We're not going to force feed you anything, but don't tell us what we can and cannot do based on you."
Right.
And they cried to the office, and it was like,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, honestly, if it was me and I just couldn't eat anything there, do you mind if we eat something on the way back? Or if your stomach's that sensitive, did you bring something of your own? Did you,
Yeah.
But no, there was a list of places this student would not eat. And I'm like, I
So,
would no more have done that with one of my preceptors. I know one of my preceptors. He precepted me in intermediate school. He may watch this someday. And I'm going to say this, Radar. You I know I shut up and I fit in because it was your world and I was there to fit in.
yep.
You
The hardest decision you make for your entire shift is where the hell you're going to eat.
they wanted to go to whatever the place was that they were going to eat, and I don't remember where. It was a fast food place,
Yeah.
but it was one of the things that it was either new in town or they didn't have it in town, and it was like
Yeah.
this big drama. And I'm like, because they wanted to what? Folks, if this is what's coming to the administration's office, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
And I was in administration at the time, and I'm like, I remember a third rider, they were asking him if he wanted something to eat. It's a different crew. They asked him if he wanted something to eat, but they couldn't figure out among the two of them up front what his name was.
Yeah. I know.
One thought his name was Ray, one thought it was Bob, and so they started calling him Ray Bob. Now, neither one was his name.
Of course not.
But they then informed him that they would take the time to learn his correct name at the point he lasted 6 months. That until he lasted 6 months, it was Ray Bob, hey, you, or asshole.
Yep. It's funny. I've said that to people because I had somebody ask me what so-and-so's name was. And I'm like, who are you talking about? And they described the person. And I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to know what their name is? They haven't been here more than 5 minutes. I said,
Yeah.
I'm lucky if I remember my own name.
And the thing was, hey, FNG.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Boy,
the thing
is that
was,
not politically correct to say anymore.
but then again, you're not assuming it could be guy or girl. So,
Oh, true.
But the thing is, hey, you,
Right.
again, you think over the years that you and I worked together, how many hundreds of thousands did we see gaggling through?
Oh, I know.
I'll learn your name when you last here 6 months.
Yeah. And that's what I tell them because, you see so many people pass through. And a lot of times now you've got such a high turnover rate. It gets to the point where it's like, okay, if they're here in 6 months, I'll know them, but they might not even make it through probie period.
And the other thing is, some of them come through, are really good, really jam up, do a great job.
Yeah.
At that point, I'll give a shit. I will. At that point, I'll give a shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, it's like kids ain't that special. We've between the two people on this screen, we've probably seen 1,000 come wandering through.
Oh, I know.
Wander off, and I mean, come through as EMTs, come through as paramedics, come through as students. And if it's in the first month and we say, hey, you, or we get your name wrong, don't be offended. Because guess what, folks? We've seen one too many.
I've got one student that I'll never forget. She rode with me just about her entire paramedic school. And I told her, I think it was her second or third day, I said, you're going to do pretty damn well for yourself. Well, now, I don't know how many years later it is, but she's teaching at a college, the paramedic program. She's worked her way up at the system she worked at.
Mm-hmm.
And I still talk to her every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell her, I said, I told you were going to do good things.
Yeah.
And she's like, but I didn't believe it back then. And I said, I told you all through school, all you get to do is hit the books and study hard.
Yep.
And right before she graduated, I told her, I said, told you could do it.
Yep.
And she said, why didn't you doubt me? I said, because I was an asshole. I made you do your stuff, but I wouldn't let you hurt anybody and I wouldn't let you give up.
Right.
And that's what it's about being a preceptor.
Mm-hmm.
It's not trying to destroy these kids. It's trying to help them along the way. You build their confidence, you build their knowledge, and you move them in the right direction. If they get to the point where they realize that they don't want this, then you courteously give them a local application to a trucking company or something.
Yeah.
And we have all given those to people at times.
Yeah. And
Fast
I
food
think,
restaurants, and we've filled them out. I did one for Hair Club for Men for a guy I worked with. But I mean, we do stuff like that to each other.
right. And I mean, the thing is, as I think the biggest thing with the preceptor is, the ones who come in so full of doubt, so
Yeah.
lost, those are the ones we'll sit down and we'll try to build them up a little bit, and we'll coach them and we'll nurture them and we'll help them. The ones that come in that, I know twice what you do because I'm special.
Yeah.
Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but there's been a couple that it's been like, okay, if someone doesn't humble this kid up, this is going to get ugly.
Yeah.
And I know one individual who literally, there was a discussion among a group of us who had all been precepting him, and it was, somebody's going to have to humble this idiot up before he kills someone.
Yeah.
Because where he came from and his thought process and his mindset and his view of self was so far outside, he thought he was up here and he was about here.
Yeah.
And he thought he knew everything, and he knew barely enough to get through the test. And, and it was like, okay, someone's going to have to humble him up before he's dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Because, then again, I mean, sometimes the job humbles you up itself.
It sure does. When you get on that call, it's a total shitstorm, and say your backup arrives and you're knee deep in alligators, and they might offer a suggestion, and you go, that's the one damn thing I didn't think of.
Yeah.
It's like, how many codes have you run over the years where you're getting ready to pronounce 900-year-old grandpa who was a witnessed cardiac arrest that you walked in the door and knew you weren't going to be able to do a damn thing for, but yet you've got 5 firemen there, you've got 2 EMTs, 2 paramedics, and you looked around and you said, does anybody have a problem with me calling this code?
Right.
And if one person says, why don't we try this? You give it a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, I do that all the time. And I had an ER doc friend, and he said one day, I brought a code in because back years ago, we did that. You throw them in the bus, you haul ass for the hospital, and you do crappy CPR at 90 miles an hour while you're trying to maintain the tube in the yap. And he looked around the room and he said, can anybody think of anything that I haven't done or they haven't done? And everyone was like, nope, between the medics and us, there's, and he's like, okay, time of death, but it's a general consensus because somebody might think of something that somebody else didn't.
Right. And that comes in a lot to the whole crew resource management, being willing to open up the floor and say, okay.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, crew resource management, we teach it in EMS now, but it came out of aviation, and it was cockpit resource management. Yeah. And the whole concept was that flight navigator or second officer who's been there 6 months and that first officer who's been there a year both need to have the right permission and not necessarily authority, but the ability to speak out to the captain who's been there 25 years Because if that captain who's been there 25 years is doing something stupid or missing something, all three of their lives are in on this.
Right.
Now, with us, it's not necessarily our lives in on it, but, our patient depends on all of us, not the Sully show.
Right.
Yeah, I've got the big patch. I've got the 8 on my card. So now I'm the only one who can speak on scene. That's garbage.
Right.
And,
I
and
said that to a paramedic, what was it, 2 days ago? I had to try to think of what the hell day today was.
It is Saturday, I think. I'm checking. Yeah.
Yeah, matter of fact, I'm sitting here going, is it? But he is with a fairly new EMT. And I heard a discussion that he is the paramedic, he is in charge of that truck. She is to do what he tells her, whatever he tells her to do, and regardless of what the situation. And I looked at him and I said, "You can't be a prick. There's 2 people on that bus."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Yeah, but I'm the paramedic. I'm in charge." And I said, "Ultimately, you are, but there's 2 people on that truck,
Mm-hmm.
and you're a team."
Yeah.
I said,
Now, is this one of your guys?
"Yeah."
You want to have some fun with them? Tell them to go on our YouTube channel and watch our crew resource management video. It's a study from an aviation, it's a case study from an aviation accident.
Yeah.
I'll put it this way. It didn't end real well, but they were going into land. They had a bulb. When they went to put down the landing gear,
Yeah.
the nose gear bulb didn't come up green.
Uh-oh.
They get all tied up, 3 in the cockpit. Captain, first officer, engineer. They get all jammed up in troubleshooting this. They ran out of fuel.
Oh, crap.
In the air. And at points,
You
they went
can't
back
get out
to
and
the...
push a plane.
Yeah, they went back over the cockpit voice recorder, and the other 2 had made commentary about, Captain, our fuel level. Captain, our fuel level. But he had been such a bear through everything. Yeah, I can get you that one, and I've got another case study very similar of a veteran captain in the cockpit who's ex-military, who's this, who tears up his first officer throughout the flight. And then when things start going bad, the first officer is not able to find their voice anymore. They're just like,
yeah.
yeah. And it's like, this is what tearing the... Think about it. If he intimidates her enough that she doesn't find her voice, later that day, if he's missing something or doing something oopsie, guess what's going to happen?
She's not going to say anything.
She's going to be too intimidated to question the mighty paramedic.
Yep.
Dude, we had a paramedic. Now, I'll say for the record, it was neither of us on the stream, but I think you're going to know who I'm talking about. Gets on a scene for a diabetic, and for whatever reason, managed to have a diabetic with low blood sugar, pushed an amp of bicarb because it's the same size as the 50, and he did it. And the thing was, his EMT partner saw it happening and was afraid to tell him because of the way he was.
Yeah.
And, he was a paramedic. He was a field training officer. He was this, he was this, he was this. And I was responding as a backup unit with the engine. And when I got there, this is sad. I was off duty with the MS, but I was responding with the engine.
Oh, people don't have more than one job.
No, we don't all double dip. But so I get there on the big red truck. I had just gotten off shift. Got there with the big red truck, and they had been dispatched out while, I was on my way home. I picked up the red truck and ran that. Well, she literally, she pulls me aside to tell me. Yeah. She would tell the firefighter even though she knew I worked EMS, she's like, I think I know the problem. What's that? Look at what he pushed. I'm like, who told him this? Did we tell him this? Does he know this? The patient, And she's like, I can't talk to him. You can. You're a medic.
Yeah.
And that was actually what she said. And I mean, this was up in Medic 3's area.
Yeah.
And I just sat there and I'm like, okay, I got this. And I go in and I'm like, dude, check your bag. And he checked his bag. Sure enough, he still had a D50 in there. He didn't have a bicarb. So I was like, you put bicarb, bro. I don't know how I could have done that. Well, I wasn't here.
Yeah.
But so we fixed it. We get it all done. And again, well, he also would not accept any responsibility for it. It was everyone else's fault.
Of course not.
Yeah. And
they must have handed me the wrong drug.
Well, the end result, basically, I remember he lost his FTO over it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that to me is, again, an EMS version of a case study in the crew resource management.
Right. And if you think about it, what's one of the things they teach you about any medication? Right.
Read what the hell it is. Read what the hell it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, read it.
Yep.
But again, and stupidly enough, it happened. But I mean, to me, the crew resource management side of it is, okay, yeah, you're the paramedic. You're the FTO. You are the brilliant individual who knows everything. Yeah. Yep. That little part-time EMT, she can't tell you nothing, can she?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You might not want to push that. That's the wrong drug.
Right.
Things like that clue me in that there's something wrong.
Well, I go back to, and again, crew resource management, it comes from aviation, which is cockpit resource management. And honestly, you can use CRM for fire service, you can use CRM for EMS, law enforcement, whatever. And I've studied a lot of it. I've watched a lot of great resources on CRM and failures of CRM in the aviation industry. And that's how I knew about that airplane crash.
Yeah.
I can get you 5 plane crashes that are just CRM failures.
Yeah.
Yeah. The almighty pilot wouldn't listen to anything. Okay, translate that into this. This was a CRM failure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, well,
think about mass casualty incident, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the incident commander doesn't properly manage his crew's resources, you could have catastrophic failures. You could have too many patients going to the wrong hospitals. You could overwhelm one hospital.
Yeah.
You could have buildings falling on your crews.
Yep.
You can have trucks exploding and killing people.
Yep.
If you don't manage your resources properly, you might not get the resources you need to manage your events either.
Mm-hmm. But the thing is, it's really interesting because in that setting, this is the rookie fireman who's up the road directing traffic who realizes that, wait a minute, that cloud of smoke is changing direction.
Yeah.
But how dare he tell the chief anything?
Yep.
It's that guy who's out behind the plant who says, boy, look at that big propane tank back there. But he doesn't say anything to the big white helmet.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, that white helmet, for whatever reason, the propane tank is new. He doesn't know about it. He's forgotten about it, And all of a sudden, it's like that thing gets involved. We have a levy. We lose, a bunch of guys. And it's like, well, 3 of us saw that. Well, why didn't you tell anyone? Because you know what, Chief? You were too busy screaming at everyone on the radio to shut the hell up and do what you told them.
Yep.
So congratulations, Chief. You did not use... Yeah. You created an environment, a CRM environment, that nobody could say anything. And that person out in the backyard who noticed that the back Front of the house, roof looked great. Back of the house, roof looked like ass. It's bowing in.
Yep.
But you don't call that Chief, because you know how Chief so-and-so is. We'll just call him Chief B. You know how Chief B is, and you don't even deal with him.
Yeah.
Because you know what? If I want to hear anything from you, I'll ask, boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we have? We had a rear roof collapse.
Yep.
Yeah. And I know a chief who used to be like that. And now, fortunately, we never had the tragic incident. But studying this CRM stuff, and I think, in your split crew, your EMT paramedic crew, that CRM we need to push a lot.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've got check out our video up. I know we've got it on the channel because I posted it up because I thought it's important. And again, it's an aviation accident that I took it from. But it's, it's useful.
Yeah, it sounds good.
But
I get to get some sleep.
I hear you. I definitely appreciate you coming out tonight.
Hey,
Folks,
no
if you've
problem.
made it this far in our video, check out our Academy stuff. Check out our other videos we've got online. Also, not only on here, we've also got our channel up on Rumble as well. We've reactivated our Twitter, although we're not using a whole lot of stuff these days. We do have our website up there, as well as our online Academy platform. If you want information about any of the stuff we do, by all means, feel free to email us at info@valormed.net. Ideally, we're doing this stuff, and we're going to be doing more of these. Hopefully get some more voices involved. If you are an EMS trainer or administrator or want to come in and chat with us and join the roundtable, we'd also love to hear that. Drop us an email. We'll have a whole group chat. We can run up to about 10 on here. I want to build a community here for EMS, for support. Yes, Valor is a business. Yes, we're trying to run a business. But on the other side, we also started doing this because of what we wanted the business to be able to do. We want the business to make contribution to EMS as a whole and try to better the system and the services that we work with. Thank you very much, and y'all have a wonderful evening.